Today on Sugar Spun Run, we'll be making coconut cream bars. Hey Sugar Spun Bakers, Sam here, and today I am sharing yet another carefully tested, well-researched, and perfected recipe. I hope some of you are still with me after hearing the title for this recipe because I know I lose a lot of people when I start talking about coconut. Even my own husband will not watch this video because it's about coconut. So those of you who are still there, I really appreciate you. Let's go ahead and get started. Now we're going to begin by preheating our oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit and grab yourself a large mixing bowl. I am going to be using an electric hand mixer for today's recipe, but this could absolutely be made in a stand mixer instead if you prefer. Now the first ingredient, unsurprisingly, is butter. You're going to need 1 cup of softened unsalted butter. And I just hope my butter is soft enough. Still has a little bit of chill to it. I think it'll cream up nicely. Now the next thing you need is 2 ounces of softened cream cheese. Now cream cheese may seem like an unusual ingredient, but, excuse me, but it actually pairs really, really well with the coconut that we're using today. And it has the added benefit of it's going to make that cookie bar layer that we're making first, it's going to make it extra soft, it's going to add a nice depth of flavor, and it's going to make it perfectly tender. So it has the benefits of adding flavor and affecting the texture positively. We're gonna hold on to the rest of that cream cheese because we're going to be using it in our frosting layer. The next ingredient you need is 1 3/4 cup of granulated sugar. Now in a lot of my cookie bars, I like to use brown sugar in addition to granulated sugar. This recipe, it just doesn't work. It doesn't add the right kind of depth we're looking for. I like to just use granulated because it helps the coconut shine better than using brown sugar would. Now let's cream everything together until it's light and fluffy and well combined. Okay, pretty light, creamy, uniform. This is looking pretty good. If you did opt to use a stand mixer for today's recipe, make sure you pause after this step. Scrape the sides and bottom of your bowl because that cream cheese has the tendency to kind of clump up down there and then you end up with lumps in your cookie bar. So we don't want that. All right, so the next thing I'm going to be adding today is 2 large eggs and an egg yolk. Let me go ahead and crack these in a separate bowl. These eggs are particularly large because they're from my mom's chickens. So I guess I'd say large or extra large eggs. Either will work in this recipe. It's been tested both ways. There's egg number 1. Giant egg number 2. And finally 1 egg yolk. So I like to add an egg yolk, not because I'm trying to waste an egg white here. This one's gonna go to my dog, so it's not getting wasted. But because this extra yolk is going to make that cookie bar nice and tender. Also, since we are using cream cheese tends to make our baked goods a little bit more cakey because there's added moisture, there's added water in there. I don't want these cookie bars to be too cakey. I want them to be nice and tender, so we omit that extra white, which would contribute to the cakiness. I hope all of that makes sense. So now we're also going to add a teaspoon of vanilla extract and a 1/4 teaspoon of coconut extract. And a little bit of coconut extract goes a long way. We'll cream everything together until this is nice and well combined again. All right, now let's slide this out of the way and we're going to need a separate bowl for our dry ingredients. And it seems I have misplaced my flour. All right, flour is back. We are going to be adding 2½ cups of all-purpose flour. Again, one day I'll just put the flour directly in the larger mixing bowl. We are also going to be adding a 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder and a teaspoon of salt. This is just regular table salt. Now we'll just whisk everything together. Bring back our wet ingredients. Now we'll gradually add the dry ingredients to the wet. I do this in like 3 parts and I will use my electric mixer, but I'm going to keep it on low speed and mix just until everything is incorporated. This recipe is pretty similar to my sugar cookie bar base. So if you've ever had that, you know it's a pretty dense, chewy, not too sweet cookie bar layer. Very tender, and it works very well with the frosting, which we will be making shortly. All right, let's add the last bit in. And since it is a cookie bar, you don't have to worry too much about accidentally overmixing the dough, but it's not really necessary to go beyond just combining everything. All right, let's scrape the sides and bottom of our bowl. We want to make sure everything is well combined, and it does look pretty good. So the next thing you need is your baking pan. We're going to be baking today's recipe in a 13x9 baking pan. And as you can see, I've lined mine with parchment paper. I love parchment paper. It makes it easy to lift the bars up and cut them after they've cooled. Makes cleanup super easy. But if you don't have parchment paper, you can lightly grease the pan instead. Now, the one downside to using parchment paper is we have a pretty thick and sticky cookie dough here. It can get a little bit difficult to spread this in evenly because the parchment paper is a little wiggly. And these already smell so lovely. They have a nice hint of coconut to them. Because even though I do like coconut, I know we don't want it to be overpowering. So the bars just have a nice subtle touch to them. We want to spread this in a nice even layer. Okay, this is looking beautiful, if I do say so myself. So we're going to take it over to our 350 Fahrenheit preheated oven, where it's going to bake for about 25 minutes. What I'm looking for is the edges will be just beginning to turn a very light golden brown. If you want to use the toothpick test, a toothpick inserted in the center will come out clean or with a few crumbs. All right, these are looking beautiful, so we are going to need to let them cool completely before we can frost them. However, do not turn your oven off just yet, because we have one other order of business to attend to, and that is our coconut that's going to be on our topping. So for the topping, we are going to need 1.5 cups of sweetened shredded coconut. I like to toast not all of it because that would give us too much of a crispy texture, but I like to toast about 1/2 cup of this because it does add a nice subtle texture, and toasted coconut just tastes even better than untoasted coconut. So I'm going to take about 1/2 cup here. Doesn't have to be an exact science, except I'm kind of a perfectionist, so now I'm worried it's not exactly 1/2 cup, but it's fine, it's fine. We'll do a little more. And we are going to take this over to our 350 Fahrenheit oven that is still on from cooking our bars, and we're just going to toast this briefly. It takes like 4 to 5 minutes, and then we'll pull it out, we'll give it a stir, and if it's not nicely toasted, we'll put it back in for another 3 minutes, and that should do the trick, but if it doesn't, we'll just repeat in 3-minute intervals until it's nice and lightly toasted. All right, this is after 4 minutes, and as you can see, it's nice and toasty. I don't think this needs any more time. This will, of course, also need to cool before you can add it to your coconut cream bars. Set this aside. All right, while everything is cooling, we can make our coconut cream bar topping. I love this topping. If you like coconut, you're gonna go crazy for it. So we start with 1 stick or 1/2 cup of unsalted softened butter, or use salted butter and just skip the salt that I'll be adding in a bit. Drop that in there. And then 3 ounces of cream cheese, also softened. You can see mine is pre-cut this time. I do recommend using the brick style cream cheese, not the kind sold in a tub. Some people have told me they have success using that, but in my experience, using that or using low fat cream cheese usually results in like a watery frosting that doesn't spread well. So I'm going to use my electric mixer again to cream these 2 together until they are smooth and lump free. And since they're softened, that shouldn't take very long. Next, you are going to need 2 cups of powdered sugar. So maybe you can tell this is kind of like a buttercream type of frosting, but thanks to the cream cheese, it's not too sweet. That was really, really important to me when I was making this recipe. Now we won't add all of the sugar at once. We're just going to do, if I can help it. Just going to do a bit at a time, like about 1/2 cup at a time. That way we don't send powdered sugar flying everywhere, which I usually end up doing anyway. See? A little bit more. The last bit of sugar. Okay, now for the flavoring, we're going to grab our coconut extract again, and we're going to add just a 1/2 teaspoon. It smells so good. And we're also going to add an 1/8 teaspoon of salt, assuming you used unsalted butter. We're going to stir these in. And then I'm just going to grab a spatula and make sure that there are no lumps hiding anywhere in this frosting before we put it on our bars. It's looking pretty good. All right, now the last thing left to do is to decorate these bars. So it is so important that they not be even a little bit warm to the touch, because that will melt your frosting, which we do not want. So we can just go ahead and slap that frosting right on there. I love this recipe, especially for summer. Sometimes in the summer, I'm more about like fruit flavors instead of chocolate flavors. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'll always do chocolate, but this is a really nice recipe for the summertime. Now we'll just smooth this frosting evenly over the surface. You want it to be nice and even, but it doesn't have to be super pretty because ultimately you won't be seeing the frosting. I said it doesn't matter, but I still need it to look a little bit pretty. Now you should have 1 cup of sweetened shredded coconut left that we didn't toast. We are going to evenly sprinkle this over the cookie bars. And I do like to just sort of very gently use my hands to gently press this into the frosting, just so it doesn't completely like fall off when you pick up your cookie bar. Distribute that a little better. And then finally, your toasted coconut must be completely cooled before you do this step. Just going to swirl it all together because as you can see, the edges get a little bit more brown, the center a little less brown. I want a nice mix here. And we will sprinkle this over the top. It adds just a nice texture, a nice added flavor. And I say this step is optional, but it really shouldn't be. Good desserts sometimes just take a couple extra minutes of time, but you guys don't mind that. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. You appreciate good desserts. That's why I like you. Aren't they so pretty? All right, the time has come. We're going to taste these beautiful coconut bars. I'm going to use my parchment paper to lift them over to a cutting board. Look at that. This is going to be so easy to clean now. And let's go ahead and dig in. Oh, they're so pretty. Now, if you wait, I don't know, at least 15, 20 minutes or an hour, the frosting, it's never going to get super solid, but it is going to firm up a little bit. Since I'm cutting these immediately, it's going to be a little bit messier. Just wanted to let you know in case you want neater, more neatly cut squares. You guys make me nervous about cutting on camera. Can't cut a straight line to save my life. Cut as little as possible. And ta-da! That is how you make coconut cream bars. I love these. I think you are going to love them. They also make really nice bite-sized treats. Sometimes I'll cut this into like quarters so I have nice, cute little squares. They're super delicious. If you like coconut, I think you're going to absolutely love this recipe. So if you try it, leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. I always love hearing from you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. It's amazing. It's tropical, it's buttery, it's tender, it's coconutty. If anyone who doesn't like coconut, I feel sorry for them. This is amazing. We are on the brink of a coconut-induced divorce. I don't know how we're gonna go on. Now I smell like cream cheese. It's not the worst thing. For today's recipe, my sugar. Oh, that's right, this is your fault. Wow, slow down, mixer. No need for super speed. I would like the record to show this is Nikki's fault. Coconut-inspired divorce.